Kia ora, good afternoon, everyone. We will kick off this afternoon's extraordinary meeting with a karakia. Kia hora, te marino, kia whakapapa, panano te moana, hei huarahi mā tātou I tēnei rā, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou kia tātou katoa. Haumie, huie, tai kia. I have apologies for today's meeting from Councillor McKinley. And a potential apology for lateness from Councillor Patterson and she's here, yeah. Tracy, and Councillor Duncan. So if you can just note that you may join us momentarily with any luck. Can I have a mover for the apologies, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lindley. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Aye.
Declarations of interest are outlined from page 6. Just a reminder to keep those regularly updated and step aside from any decisions that you think may present a conflict of interest. And now we move to the most exciting report of the week, recognising that we are but Monday. Consultation document for the 2025 to 34 long-term plan and the supporting information. Take it away, Saskia.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors, and thank you for your time and thank you for the adjustment from having this meeting on Friday. So I'm just going to say a few words, then I'm going to pass over the team to really go through some of the specifics and answer sort of the detailed questions that you might have. While we were pushed out by one day, I think it's quite important to note that essentially due to Easter and Anzac, it really has no impact on our consultation committee meetings, nor going to hearings and deliberations. So they will all proceed as planned. So we're on track. And I just would like to acknowledge, I know it's quite challenging for us as an organisation and also Audit New Zealand. Audit New Zealand, the team have been fantastic. They have been, I know, working very late at night to get this through to us today. So just an acknowledgement for Audit New Zealand. And I don't know if we've got Chantal now.
Yep.
So I'll hand it over to Chantal, who'll make a few comments. At that point, councillors, if you've got any questions of Audit New Zealand, Chantal's going to be here for the whole meeting, but any particular questions you'd like to ask, and then Paul and the team will really step us through the changes that we've had since you last saw this documentation. So over to you, Chantal.
Thank you very much. Afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm happy to say that we have an audit opinion for you on your consultation document. What I'd like to highlight is that the working relationship between council management and ourselves has been really good. We've had some, technical and forward-thinking strategic operations that have had to be incorporated into this document, and we've come out the other end with, I think, a good consultation document. What we do have is 2 emphasis of matter paragraphs. We've got an emphasis of matter paragraph around the uncertainty over water service delivery, where we've indicated that within this consultation document and the underlying information, there is a high level of uncertainty over the financial impacts of this option, because the arrangements and timing are also dependent on other councils' decisions. If the council's preferred option is not adopted, the content of the long-term plan will look significantly different. We've also got an emphasis matter on the uncertainty over land sales, where we've indicated the forecast revenue for these sales is highly uncertain due to the council's significant judgment about future market conditions. If the land sales are not achieved as planned, the council may need to adjust the timing and costs of project plans to fund these that are funded from these sales, and it may not achieve a balanced budget. So those are the 2 emphasis of matters, and those are the items that management and our team have had to work through over the last few weeks. That's all I have to say. I'm happy to have any questions with regards to the consultation document audit.
Thank you very much, Chantal, and for clarifying those two matters of emphasis for us. I recognise that this has been an extremely stressful and under the pump time for your team as well, and there have been the additional challenges of, I guess, a bit of a lack of clarity in how to treat Three Waters being in or out or otherwise when we're trying to put together a long-term plan that is in effect a short-term plan, which may result in us stepping aside from 30% of our business in the foreseeable future. So I appreciate the effort that you and the team have put in as well, and I understand that some clarity has been sought from the Office of the Auditor General a number of times, but yeah, we are in uncharted waters, as are they, as are you. And all of those stars colliding has not been the easiest working environment for everybody in finance and local government over the last 3 years. Sorry, team. Are there any questions from elected members online?
And just to remind elected members, the team will step through all the detailed changes on the consultation document. So I think at this point, if any sort of for Audit New Zealand. Thank you.
I just got one, Neil Gillespie here. Those two matters of interest, sorry, I might have got the terminology wrong, that wouldn't be particularly surprising given the nature of the beast, would they? So it's not actually a negative as such, it's just the reality is saying the crystal ball we've got may turn out to be a bit wrong.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that's why you know, the accounting treatment that we worked through with the council management was important because the uncertainty around water service delivery could have been a qualification if we didn't have the accounting treatment in terms of the information that council had available. So that's the case. Also, the engagement that we've had with the Auditor General has been very positive. Each council seems to be handling this process slightly differently. So each time we take something through to them for engagement, we have to take the situation and judgments of each individual council through the process. So there's no one answer fits all with regards to this approach.
Thank you.
Right. Would you like to step us through the document?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wayne, can you put, I'm assuming everybody can see that, and that's sharing it. Okay. Yeah, that one. Yeah, okay.
And councillors, as we step through this, we're more than happy to take questions as we go.
Okay. Was this sent out? Yeah. So you may have had a chance to read it, or you may not have, given the fact that it was sent out this afternoon. So I will go through it in a little bit more detail. And I am talking to the main important changes. We've changed the full stop or a capital letter, or changed the word spend to spent, or vice versa. I'm not going to talk about those. So if we kick off on page 7 in box number 12, we have amended the words to talk about a rates increase for both growth and a rates increase excluding growth. That's the average over 2 years. And that was put in to give a little bit of consistency with some of the graphs further into the document. Page 8, we added the first bullet point on the top of the list of bullet points. What's our plan for water? So it effectively reads, what's our plan for water? Changes for water use, and then it, next to 3 bullet points cover off the remainder of the items in the consultation document. Page 11, which is the water, the main water consultation, we have added a paragraph that says it is important to understand that we have made assumptions in the transfer of water services activities to the new entity. While our preferred option is to participate in a multi-council CCO, we have assumed that we will be able to negotiate a suitable agreement with other councils we have been in discussion with. We are unable to determine how many councils will join the proposed regional CCO. There is a key assumption that the level of ownership of the regional CCO will be consistent with the relative contributions of net assets by each joint council joining the CCO. This will only be quantified as negotiations progress. While we have accounted for the transaction to remove the net assets from council's ownership, we are unable to determine with accuracy whether a surplus loss will occur as we have assumed. We are assuming the new entity will make good any reserve deficit currently carried by council via a cash injection. This may not occur, and any reserve deficits may need to be carried by council as debt. We have also assumed that the new entity will be able to have council's current water services debt novated to them. This will depend on how LGFA treat the new entity/council relationship. This may result in council retaining the debt with an agreement of it for an asset effectively with the entity to take on responsibility for paying principal and interest when due. This is exactly what, sorry, I'll just say this and then I'll take questions. This is exactly what Chantal was talking about in terms of the complete uncertainty of the transaction that we were talking about. So we've made some assumptions, and this talks about the inherent uncertainty around those assumptions. Sorry.
Any questions on what we've covered so far?
I've got, it's not necessarily a question, but for all those people that are listening, it would be really good, Paul, if you could just explain publicly why those assumptions have been made again, just so that it is not lost to anybody who is listening online, please.
Yeah, sure. As Chantal and I've just kind of outlined, but to produce this long-term plan, we made the assumptions around transferring assets into the new entity, and our first initial assumption would be that we would get 25% of the new entity, given that there are 4 of us. We then moved on to, well, we as our council have probably the larger asset base than most of the councils who would join the regional CCO. So that then leads us to how do we work out how much of the ownership do we get? And that will depend on debt levels that we might carry compared to everybody else, asset values that we carry compared to everybody else. So we've made some assumptions around that we can effectively transfer the assets to the new entity, but whether we will retain the 25% share or a 30% share or what that share looks like, that's uncertain. So we've had to make some assumptions around that. And what we're basically saying in this paragraph is that those assumptions that we've made are made that is quite uncertain, and that we won't get clarity until the council decides via the Water Services Delivery Plan consultation what the new entity might look like. I hope that kind of makes sense. It's a little bit technical, but we have to, when we produce an LTP, we produce it based on assumptions because it is effectively looking into the future. And those assumptions, while they can be quite robust with things like this, where there are other councils involved, it gets a little bit uncertain. So that's why we put this paragraph in.
Thank you. That's great.
Page 12, the update the rates and charges impact graph. There was, as things have changed slightly with how we've worked with the requirements, the auditors have asked us to make small changes to rates lines. So we have, as it progresses out, we've made those changes, and this graph represents those changes. Does not impact the first couple of years rates that we've talked about before with the council. Page 14. We have added below in a new paragraph after the last paragraph. In the scenario below, it is assumed that there will be a 30% reduction in water usage if volumetric charge per cubic metre is increased. This assumption is based on when volumetric charging was introduced in 2012, 2013, where a 30% reduction was achieved. So effectively, we are suggesting that that a further 30% could be achieved, and that is based on historical action 12 years ago. So it was just a little bit of clarity to give the reader an idea of where the 30% came from. On page 18, add the information below after the last paragraph. The council expects to realise net cost reductions of 4.8 million. So this is in terms of the halls over the 9 years of this plan. It is expected the initial reduction in year one will only amount to $284,000 and relates to a reduced operating costs and depreciation not being funded. Cost reductions will not occur at a consistent level as each of the assets proposed for divestment will have different maintenance and capital program profiles. That's just giving us a little bit more detail in where we expect to end up and how that might be achieved. Page 18, we are changing option A. We're changing the words to divest the community halls listed, which creates a reduction in year one of 284 or 0.054% per rate car. I think it had 284 per annum, which is incorrect, and that's explained by the paragraph above. And we're taking out in option B the words per annum to make it in year one, again, to reflect the paragraph that we had above. We move to page 20. We're changing the numbers in the highlighted numbers in those tables. So Ophir Hall was 19,000, or it was 39,000 and it should be 19. And the total should be 2.056 million, down from 2.076. So that 39 was a typo. It should have been 19 all the way through the discussion. So page 35. So after the third paragraph, we're adding another paragraph around land sales, which is the other emphasis of matter. And the land sales are characterised by a high degree of uncertainty due to the significant judgments required regarding the timing and progress of land development, the associated costs and the demand, revenue and timing of sales. Given the large scale of land development throughout the LTP period, this could have a material impact, and may result in increased debt levels or debt being held for longer, which will lead to higher financing costs and increased rates. Projects may be delayed or postponed while the debt levels and financing costs are realigned with ratepayers' ability to pay. Due to the nature of the land in question, it is unlikely the council will reconsult with the community. However, it may need to reconsult on the timing and costs of its projects being funded from land sales. By not achieving the timing of project and land sales, this could impact margins due to weaker than anticipated demand. The land sales contained in this LTP include the Gear Avenue residential subdivision and Bannockburn industrial subdivision. The net profits received from these subdivisions will be used to fund the Cromwell Master Plan project. So effectively what we're trying to say here is, again, there is some uncertainty as we're looking out the full 9 years. And there is an inherent risk around the timing of the sales. We have, as you will see in terms of your resolutions or your recommendations, if we don't make those land sales, then we run an unbalanced budget. And if we don't make those land sales in any of the years, then all of the years will be unbalanced. So it's critical that we make those, but this paragraph is to highlight the impacts of us not making those sales and what that might do to our future projects, and the impact that we may have on rates, and that is through the financing costs. Is there any questions on that one? No? Okay. So page 35, second column, last paragraph, second sentence, that's pretty specific. So that's the green one, is it?
So it's actually that one there.
Other one, okay, so all renewals are generally funded by depreciation reserves. The exception to this is water services, as we have decided instead only partially fund up to 50% their asset replacement costs. This will have the effect of lowering rates in the first 2 years, and then we have added the following, which says with the remaining being funded, debt funded. So what that's saying is we're funding half by rates and half by debt, which is a decision that the council came to, I think, in December, something like that. Page 37, the debt affordability benchmark wording. We've updated all the wording in the debt affordability benchmark with the following. So the council meets the debt affordability benchmark if its planned borrowing is within each quantified limit on borrowing. The following graph compares the council's planned borrowing with a quantified limit on borrowing. The quantified limit on borrowing is that net external borrowing are not to exceed 10% of total assets. Net external borrowing are defined as total external debt less cash or cash equivalents that will be available to repay debt. It should be noted that from year 3 of this plan onwards, debt reduces significantly with the transfer of Three Waters liabilities along with the assets to the new water delivery entity and cash received from land sales that are realised. This will be used to pay down the debt incurred on the Cromwell Memorial Hall. So that's a bit more of a clarification on the debt affordability benchmark and what we plan to use the resulting cash from land sales for, which the council's already, my understanding, the council's agreed to paying the debt part portion of that. So we have updated the debt affordability graph to reflect that. Excuse me. Page 38. So we're changing, we're adding a new paragraph 3. And that reads, this is a local government funding agency debt covenant. As part of the LGFA requirements, the council needs to ensure that its net debt to total operating revenue does not exceed the ratio. In this example, the council has provided the proposed net debt and included the ratio of 175% no credit rating and 280% with a credit rating. And then we've updated the graph accordingly. Then we move to page.
Before we move on,
Sorry, yep.
Can you just provide some clarity or some words around the graph on page 37 that highlights the rates increase affordability graph that shows that year 1 doesn't have that?
Right. The rates affordability benchmark, we looked at changing how that's calculated, and that is calculated, was calculated via a kind of a CPI calc, and we've looked at what's more appropriate for the council that doesn't have a CPI basket of goods in its cost basis. So we moved to a local government construction index plus 5%. Now, local government construction index was 5.1. Plus 5 is 10.10. The reason that we breach that in year 1 is that there are a range of costs that we are incurring in year 1, that things like starting off the Cromwell Memorial Hall funding, those types of things, that we kind of felt that it was, why would you change the debt cap, the rates cap to cover that rates? It's only 1 year. We know why it's incurred. It's incurred because we're also repaying debt, which we haven't done in any significant way in the past. and costs associated with our increased operational costs. So what we believe that going forward in year 2 onwards, we meet those benchmarks. And in fact, year 3, because of the transfer of water, you can see that there's a significant drop in rates. So effectively, it's a one-off for us. It's all of the one-off items that we are rate funding or asking to rate fund, for argument's sake, the turfs and the like. So those types of things are also included in that, and obviously they may change depending on the outcome of the long-term the consultation period. Does that answer your question? Okay. Right. So I think we got to page 41. We're adding, after the rates increase, after growth of 13.01, we're adding including GST. That's just a kind of a minor change. And in the rates example table, there were 2 Omakau properties, so we've removed one because it was only ever intended to be one property. Page 43, and that's a conversation around our schedule, our priorities. We're changing point 3 to make it point 4, and then we're adding a new point 3 saying that we're prioritising the preferred delivery option of water services. The preferred option is to transfer the ownership and management of the water services activity into a regional CCO. So that's effectively saying that we want to, we do treat that as a priority, so we will give effect to that if that's what the council decides to do after consultation and after the local water done well consultation. It will be one of our main priorities over the next 2 years to deliver that. So I will hand over to Donna now to talk through the main changes to the financial statements, unless anybody's got any questions about the text around the consultation document itself. No, I'll take that as positive.
So, as noted earlier, there's been a few changes due to the calculation of how we recognise our 3 rivers assets. But there have been a couple of other changes as well. So let's just start with the Statement of Comprehensive Revenue and Expenditure. There's been a reclassification between fees and charges and other revenue in year 1 for the reclassification of the capital contributions for the Omakau Hub. It was recognised in fees and charges, but it is actually more capital in nature and should be recognised in other revenue. Other gains and other losses in year 3 has been adjusted as a result of the clarification of the accounting treatment for 3 rivers assets transferred to a CCO. The initial recognition of the accounting treatment was to recognise a loss on the disposal of the assets and then a corresponding valuation gain on the investment of the CCO. The resulting change clarified by audit was to recognise the investment in the CCO as net assets, and this has meant the need to not recognise the loss on disposal of the assets or the gain on the valuation and investment of the CCO. We've also had a little bit of movement with the land sales and also the cost of sales. It was identified that there were some costs recognised or offsetting the land sales income. We've made that adjustment. Those 2 adjustments also have an impact on cash receipts. And so that's all the changes in the Statement of Comprehensive Revenue and Expenditure. Final changes I'll discuss are in the Statement of Financial Position. So as stated before, there have been changes to the cash and cash equivalents as a result of the land sales and asset sales and the costs that come along with them. The other change is the forestry investment properties, where we have added a revaluation increase. to all future years, and this is to ensure that the council is reflecting with its accounting policies of valuing these assets on an annual basis. Okay.
Neil,
Me?
you got a question?
Yeah, I have, yeah. Thank you. When Paul was going through the rates example one and that changed to include GST, I noticed in his one, the heading had the 25, 26 rates, but unless I've got the wrong version of the CD, my one still says 24, 25.
That's a typo. We have done a typo, we'll get those changed.
So
They
your
definitely-
example, the example on the screen now is not the same one as what we've got. It's had that change made, so it is 25, 26, but the ones that we've got on our agendas are 24, show it as being 24, 25. The number doesn't change, the number's right, it's just the heading's wrong, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
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 It's just, I'm just looking at, yeah, on the table now, it's right.
Yes, that's what caught me out, because what you showed sort of had me second guessing myself. I thought, hang on a minute, and then I went and made sure that I was looking at the right document, and I thought, no, the one I've got's not, that doesn't say that. It must have been updated, and I'm hoping you're saying yes, it has been, and what you've showed us is the correct one, and nothing else changed, which I'm not unhappy about.
Yeah, no, we'll make sure that one gear has been corrected.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wayne, can you just note for Tracy, please, that she will not be making any comment on the OMCO hub item. Any other questions from people online? Anything else you want to cover off?
No, I think we, as I say, we covered off the major changes, and yeah, that's the one that's been audited, so that we're comfortable it's the right one.
Chantal, is there anything else from you hearing those questions at all?
No, nothing from me.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us, Chantal. Anything from you?
I do have one more.
Yep.
It just occurred to me, and then it went away from my mind as quickly as I thought of it. And I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, no, sorry.
That's all right. Let me know if it comes back.
It might come back, yeah.
Yep. And I guess the one thing that often people like to fixate on is the average rates. And there are some wild variations on page 41 of our rates examples, which leaves us at a 13.01% average increase for year one. However, I note that for the majority of our ratepayers, that figure is actually less than 10%. Cromwell Residential and they're at 9%, Alexandra Residential at 8%, Ranfurly Residential at just 1%, being pulled up by Manahira Care Lifestyle at 27%, Miller's Flat Residential at 28%, Cromwell Lifestyle at 13%, and Roxburgh Farm at 19%. So there will be happy people and not so happy people for this, and that unfortunately is the luck of the draw with the way rates are calculated.
I've
Yeah,
remembered.
Okay, let's let Paul finish and then we'll come to you now.
I was just going to say, the important thing to remember here is that these are rates only. So where there is a smaller increase in the sample properties, we need to take into account volumetric charging as well. And as part of the consultation period, we have an online tool for the rate side of it, so people can look at what their rates will be live. And there will be a tool that allows people to plug in their water usage, and it will calculate under the options of 60 cents, $1.80 and $2.40, as we put in here, what their water charge would be with no savings, and then it will calculate what their water charge will be if they can save 30%. So then it's a matter of adding their water charge to their rates amount, and that gives them the total amount that they have to pay. So that will be different to the chart, the increases or decreases in here.
and recognising to take that with a grain of salt because it is of course a calculator based on the preferred options that are in this document. And if we start taking things out or putting things back in, that will change those numbers if you are using the online calculator. Right, Neil.
So that two parts to this question. That 13.01% average district rates increase is also the rates increase, isn't it? That is the amount of rates being collected is increased by 13.01%. They're the same, is that correct?
No, there's two. And what we've done in the past is, and this is a historical thing, we take into account a growth factor because what we're anticipating is that the rate base will increase by 2.1%, which in theory should lower the rates paid by everybody. So the raw rate number is 15.11, sorry. After allowing for the growth factor of 2.1, it comes back to 13.01. So there are numbers in that respect, yes.
You've answered both my questions, and that's what I wanted to understand, and you've got it. Thank you.
Cool.
So it's 13.01 average after growth.
Yes.
Yep. But the total being collected is 15.11 greater than last year.
Yes.
Cool. Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Peter, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, look, all I would just say, it's just to acknowledge the amount of effort that's actually been required by not just elected members at the end of this process, because it started back in August. And then it was further compounded by the fact that we're going through quite a lot of regulatory change as well. And so, and right up to the last safe moment, the impact on the LTP, free waters, everything else, it's just been a really busy time for the organisation, elected members and staff. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work of the staff and and the finance team, because a large chunk of this work has fallen on a small group of people, and it's been some pretty late hours to get us to this point where we can take something out to the community.
Thank you. Now, Wayne, you had a slight amendment that you were going to put up for the recommendations. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we move to the recommendations?
Should be able to see that.
Okay.
Is everyone able to see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
So the additional bit is B, and then everything else is just moved down one.
And B being that we received the letter of representation for the 2025 to 34 long-term plan consultation document and authorise the Mayor to sign on Council's behalf. Receives the level of significance. Receives the audit opinion from Audit New Zealand in relation to the long-term plan consultation document. Recognises that Council complies with Section 100 of the Local Government Act 2002, balanced budget requirement for the 9 years of the long-term plan, and that it relies on achieving its projected land sales to achieve this, and considers this financially prudent to do so, although of course audit noted that land sales can be volatile. And I would also point out for our community, I'm sure there are hundreds of people watching online, that the long-term plan consultation document is 50 pages, but there is a lot of information that sits in behind that, and you'll see that there is the infrastructure strategy, the financial strategy, right through to fees and charges, our financial statements, our investment policy, our community outcomes development. All of that will be on the website available for you to look through. We will have it available at the drop-in sessions in the community spaces so that you can go through and see how all of that aligns with the consultation document. I'm sure that you will be very excited to read those policies because they have been well thought through and put together. I am happy to move those recommendations on the screen and recommend that the Chief Executive be authorised in consultation with myself to make any necessary formatting or editorial changes, i.e. changing the date at the top of the column or a full stop or a capital letter, so that the documents can be adopted. Happy to move. Is somebody happy to second that, please?
Happy to, your worship. Just one question in B with the new B that's there. Does it need to say what the letter of representation is, kind of thing? It just seems this thing that I don't, at least the other ones talk about Audit New Zealand.
I wonder if Chantel could explain, it is a letter of representation and.
Yeah.
I guess,
Is it from the auditors or someone, or just?
Yes, it is. It is from
Yeah.
Audit New Zealand.
I just think that for clarity, it should be clarified as to, it's a letter of representation issued on behalf of Audit New Zealand or something like that, just to give it some clarity. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Did you have a
minor
comment,
thing.
Chantal?
Yeah, so it's council's representation back to us as auditors. So effectively what we do is we put in here, we ask council to represent to us that we've received the best information that's available for us to be able to audit the consultation document, that all information has been provided in order for us to complete our audit. The items that I think are most important to refer to are that all significant forecasting assumptions have been included in the preparation of the forecast information and have been clearly identified in the underlying information, which the consultation document is based on. And where significant forecasting assumptions have a high level of uncertainty, the uncertainty has been stated and potential effects of the uncertainty on the forecast financial information have been disclosed, and the adopted underlying information will be included in the LTP plan when it's adopted. Yeah, it talks to the water services plan, saying that it is consistent with council's judgment with regards to how it intends to present the water service delivery plan. It talks to performance framework, systems and processes, and legislative compliance.
Chantal, can I just, can you see the wording of B on your screen?
Yes.
Wondering if it needs to say receives the letter of representation to Audit New Zealand.
Yeah.
Because it's our letter back to you.
Yes.
What do you think of that wording?
Yes, it's council's representation back to Audit New Zealand.
Well, we don't receive it, then I would suggest receives the wrong word, isn't it? If we're
Yes.
giving it.
Maybe approves is
Yeah,
appropriate.
Yep. That's my issue's been taken care of. That's fixed up like that. Thank you. And I'm happy to second, as I said.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Much appreciated. I'm very excited. When can the public anticipate being able to view this on our website? Tonight? We've got an ETA. Is it like a 7 o'clock special, or we don't know yet?
Consultation opens tomorrow. So it'll be available.
From midnight?
Yeah.
Okay,
And the video will be tonight.
perfect.
Yeah.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, team, for joining us at relatively short notice, and thank you very much, finance team. I know this has been a long journey, and we are finally there, and now the submissions can roll in, and I'm sure they'll keep coming because there is a lot of meaty, fun stuff in there. So, thank you very much. Peter, would you like to close the meeting with a card?
Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki tonga ki mā kina ki uta ki mā taratara ki tā ehi aki ana tāte kura he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, te ei Māori.
Thank you.
Well done, team.
Your team.
Thanks, guys.
Wayne, can I assume that we'll